Chapter 3. Now is the winter of our discontent. Snow continued to fall. The limo's wipers squeaked out a rhythm that reminded me of Troy's horrid song. I was furious at myself for crying in front of Clarissa and Troy. My unhappiness was none of their business. They had probably laughed about it on their way to one of Troy's parties, laughed at the girl who had it all but couldn't handle it all. Steady snowfall had turned our brownstone into a frosted gingerbread house. I thanked the driver and stepped cautiously onto the slick sidewalk. Larry, our neighbor, was also returning home. A large silver cross swung from his neck as he tried to keep from slipping. "Hello, Mimi," he greeted, holding an umbrella above my head. He offered a fat arm as well. "Good performance?" I barfed all over the stage. He laughed. He thought I was joking. No, really. I puked up my dinner in front of everyone. "Holy St. Francis," he said, shaking his head. Then he gave me a kindly pat on the back. "Look at the bright side. That's a performance no one will soon forget." I collected the day's mail and took the stairs to the second floor. Silence and cold air greeted me as I stepped into our apartment. A lingering aroma of lemon pledge meant that the cleaning lady had been there earlier. Neither my mother nor I spent much time at the home, so it lacked our own personal smells. We didn't have any pets or plants, unless you counted a pathetic cactus that refused to die. The place was tomb-like in its lifelessness. I locked the door, turned up the heat, and dumped the mail, my gloves, and my backpack onto the kitchen table. My stomach growled as I opened the refrigerator. We used a catering service, a woman who cooked our meals for the week and put them in tidy paper containers. My mother insisted on low-calorie, low-fat entrees, which is why my father used to spend so much time at the diner on the corner, savoring sausages and gravy-drenched mashed potatoes, contributing, no doubt, to his heart disease. I pulled out a box labeled sun-dried tomato pilaf and popped it into the microwave. The night had been a complete disaster. During past performances of Romeo and Juliet, I had managed to keep the stage fright backstage. Sure, my Juliet might have appeared more nervous than most Juliets, a bit more wild-eyed, nothing more than that, but that night what I feared might happen had. What would the next night bring? Loss of bowels? While the microwave hummed, I pulled off my hat and started muttering to myself, a perfectly normal thing to do when there's no one else to talk to. Solitary muttering allows you to say all the things you don't have the courage to say to all those people who are driving you nuts. I told Clarissa she had no right to judge me. I told Troy he was a jerk for making me think I actually liked him. I told my mother to stop controlling my life. I told my father I would never forgive him for dying so young and leaving us with that cruddy theater. And I told William Shakespeare that Romeo and Juliet totally sucks because everyone just dies, and none of the characters get what they want. What kind of ending is that anyway? I'd totally write a different ending. I sat at the kitchen table and took a few bites of pilaf. The center was still cold, but I didn't care. When you're riddled with anxiety, food gives you no pleasure. A brown padded envelope stuck out of the mail pile. It was addressed to me with a return address from World Family Clinic, Los Angeles, my aunt's clinic. At that time, my mother despised my Aunt Mary. They had had a big falling out after my father died. My mom went into the house and threw away all the photos of Mary that she could find. I found a forgotten photo, buried beneath some mismatched cufflinks. The photo had been taken after Mary graduated from medical school and gone off to Africa. In it, she's wearing a white smock, a stethoscope, and is surrounded by children with purplish-black skin. One day my mother found the photo in my room. "For God's sake, why do you have that?" I had spent a great deal of time staring at the photo, wondering what it felt like to live in a place where people had so little. Why don't we see Aunt Mary anymore? She is selfish. She abandoned your father. But she helps the poor. There are plenty of poor in New York City. Why couldn't she be a doctor here? We needed her help with the theater when your father fell ill. Wallingford is her name, too. Despite a series of strokes, my father had continued to serve as executive director of the Wallingford. My mother was convinced that work-related stress finally killed him. She told everyone that if Mary had stepped in, he would still be alive. A blood clot had actually killed my father, formed from frosted donuts, fried catfish, and greasy dinner sausages. A fast food addiction wasn't the only thing that good old Dad had been hiding. Turns out we were in debt, big time. He had taken out a number of loans to keep the theater afloat, all the while we wore expensive clothes and hosted fabulous parties. No one suspected that we hovered on the brink of poverty, not even my mother. After Dad's funeral, Mary went off to New Zealand for 2 years, then to Costa Rica. She always called to check in on me, always asked about the plays, the theater, even about Mom. She told me that American doctors can work anywhere in the world. Anywhere. That sounded exciting. I began to imagine myself in that white smock and stethoscope. When she moved to Los Angeles a few years ago to open her own clinic, I realized the possibilities were endless. I pushed the peel-off aside and opened the padded envelope, opening up a letter and a small something wrapped in tissue paper. Inside the tissue lay a silver chain, from which hung a tiny glass vial filled with silver powder. I read the letter. Dearest Mimi, I was so unnerved by your last email that I spent the night searching through all my old psychology textbooks, trying to find something that might help with your stage fright. I agree with Dr. Harmony about centering techniques, but it sounds like things are getting worse. I think a change of scene is what you need. I can hardly wait to see you next week. Don't forget your bathing suit. Love, Aunt Mary. P.S. While rummaging through my old boxes, I found this necklace. I bought it at an antique shop in Stratford-on-Avon before I went off to college. The owner said it was very rare, but I suspect it's just a tourist trinket. Fun idea, though. Maybe it will bring you good luck during these last days of performing. Can't hurt to give it a try. A little card was paper-clipped to the back of the letter. It read, Shakespearean Charm. In 1890, Mr. Bertrand, a merchant and collector of William Shakespeare's writing implements, decided to auction off his collection. Unfortunately, on the eve before the auction, a fire overtook his house, destroying everything. Being a merchant of clever mind, Mr. Bertrand scooped up the ashes of the burnt implements and poured them into small bottles. He claimed that he had captured the genius that had traveled from Shakespeare's hand through his favorite quills. This is one of those very bottles. Whether the ashes came from the quill that wrote Hamlet, Twelfth Night, or Romeo and Juliet, they are certain to influence your destiny. I examined the tiny vial. Probably ashes from someone's fireplace, but the fact that it came from Aunt Mary cheered me up a bit. However, the good feeling was short-lived. As I shuffled through the rest of the mail, my mother's words filled my head. You need to reach an audience beyond New York. I shuffled faster. Theater Institute training is exactly what you need to reach your full potential. I threw the bills across the room and slammed my palms on the table. Damn. I tossed the remaining peel-off into the garbage. I just wanted to go to bed and disappear into a dream world where I was an orphan. Orphans always complained about their status, but it sounded lovely to me. While collecting the scattered mail, one of the envelopes stuck to my boot. I tried to shake it free, but it wouldn't budge. Focusing all my anger on that envelope, I stomped on it and ground it into the floor until it ripped open. Then I reached down and removed it from my heel. I had seen this envelope many times. It came ever so often from the strong-head financial planners addressed to Veronica Wallingford. The words trust fund peeked out from the torn paper. I pulled out the statement. Looking back, I realized I was completely ignorant about money matters. I knew that there were times when we had money and times when we didn't have money. I knew that as a professional actor I received a paycheck and that it went directly into a trust fund. I knew that I would get that trust fund when I turned 18. I never questioned this arrangement. The next words I noticed were beneficiary, Michelle Adelaide Wallingford, my trust fund. The fund where all my money went. What a discovery. I found the balance column. $532. Excuse me? From my calculations, that figure was missing quite a few zeros. I moved my finger to the debt column and held my breath. A withdrawal with quite a few zeros glared back at me. A withdrawal? I hadn't taken any money from my trust fund. I carried the statement to my bedroom and closed the door. The cleaning lady had tidied my bookshelves and stacked my pillows. I dropped the shocking evidence onto my bed, expecting it to burn a hole through the quilt. My mother was spending my money. Was that legal? Orphans don't have mothers who steal from them. After changing into my nightgown and brushing my teeth, I turned off my bedroom light and sat on the windowsill, pressing my cheek against the snow-speckled glass. The cold felt oddly soothing. The old lady in the apartment across the street was watching television. Her feet poked out on the end of a crocheted blanket. Her black and white cat sat on the windowsill, his usual perch. In the morning he always watched the birds and squirrels that hung out in the maple tree. That night he pressed his face against the glass, just as I did. Did he feel trapped as well? Captive in a life he had not chosen for himself? If he could, would he jump out that window? Would he risk it all and cross the street, running towards the beckoning limbs of the maple? As I cupped the Shakespearean charm, the black and white cat mouthed a meow, then laid down to sleep, giving in to his imprisonment. What we desire and what we do, as different as a Shakespearean sonnet and a Troy summer song.